Hello and welcome back to Why Geopolitics Matter, the podcast. This week's episode covers the crisis in Mali, the US and China tensions around the Panama Canal, and the UAE leaving OPEC. And now, let's get into it. Let's start with the political shenanigans of this week first. My favorite section of the episodes. So, it's not uncommon that at some point there are rumors about the health of a head of state, right? Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's based on facts. This happened to Uncle Joe Biden, to Trump at some point, right? And those rumors have a huge impact on statecraft. It could destabilize a government, and the president of Philippines knew this very, very well.
Yeah.
He's a 68-year-old chap.
Who's actually
And
really young compared to other people who do have a lot more health problems and are political leaders. So yeah.
yeah. And there were rumors around his health. Some people say that he was paralyzed and all sort of things. So he said to himself, hey, I need to do something to demonstrate that those rumors are untrue. And guess what he did? He decided to run around the city with a camera crew, just recording how he was able to run. He did a couple of jumping jacks. I'm gonna try to put the video on the podcast as well. But how original is that idea? He was even daring people to come with him to the gym to see who's gonna lift more. I can lift more than you.
Yeah.
Try me at the gym. Let's go.
I love it so much. I think it's just such a good way to put people down and just but there's other leaders who do that too. Do you remember Putin on the horse and shirtless and trying to show off his manliness and whatnot? That was a while ago, but it's still relevant. They need to show that they're in good health and any way that they can to get on the media. So doing jumping jacks or riding a horse shirtless is definitely a way to get the attention of the media to say I'm in perfect shape. Come at me.
Yeah, it's always a nice communication move. I remember as well that the French president Emmanuel Macron, did that too, but this time he was working out with the military, showing off with the guys, showing his closeness to the army and all that. So
Yeah.
always a nice move to do.
Yeah. But I love that Marcos Jr. did this too, because he's trying to make sure that everybody knows that he's still the son of dictator of the Philippines, so he's able to be I'm young and virulent and I can do all these things. I just think it's a classic move.
Yeah. And, well, with that, let's move from the political shenanigans. That should be the name of the
That's the segment name, Political Shenanigans.
Let's move from the political shenanigans to the more serious developments in global affairs. So we'll begin in the Sahel, where Mali is once again facing a deepening crisis. So Antoine, walk us through what's happening.
Yeah, so over the past week, Mali has been rocked by a nationwide offensive led by the Janim group, which is a violent and radical Islamist group active for quite a long time in the country. And it attacked in coordination with Tuareg separatists from more the northern part of the country, which is called the National Front for the Liberation of the Azawad. Azawad is the northern region of Mali. And last week's attacks are among the most coordinated and wide-ranging in the country's recent history, that directly challenged the ruling military junta's control. So quite the big event that happened in Mali. What we could remember about these attacks is that, first of all, there were simultaneous assaults across the entire country. So both Jenim and its allies launched near simultaneous attacks in northern, central, and southern Mali, including as well military bases, which is something that is important to point out. as well as several command posts and urban centers as well. And about that, they targeted as well political and military core of the country. So in the capital region, there were reports of some suicide vehicles, bombs and armed drones that struck, first of all, some important air bases and major army bases, striking quite in the heart of the country, and as well killing the defense minister, Sadio Camara, and potentially also wounding several other important figures of the military junta. What's also important to point out is that there are important territorial gains and also quite an important security vacuum in the region targeted. Northern Mali has been at the heart of instability for more than 20 years now, and with what's happening with the Tuareg, political difficulties that the Tuaregs and the central governments are facing, it's kind of complicated to see how this could evolve positively in the near future. And what's important as well is that the attack of the south part of the country is not new. We've seen that this year, at the beginning of this year, where they directly targeted trade routes and important trade routes in the south of the country. But this time, I believe it goes even deeper into attacking central urban areas. Regarding political and strategic implications, well, first of all, it's very clear that this is a crisis for the junta. The junta is not able to secure its own territory, to protect itself and its main figures. And there is, of course, a risk of regional spillover because it could create directly a safe haven for radical Islamist groups. And finally, I would say that it's also important to point out is that there was reported defeats of the Russian group Africa Corps in the country, which shows as well that Russia has not been able, through its private military companies and private actors and private military actors, to challenge these radical Islamist groups to secure important assets for the junta and as well for its own interests. So we could see as well that the risk for the Russian diplomacy to be highly impacted about these attacks. And well, what I could say then, in short, last week we saw that Jenim and Tuareg rebels have been able to upgrade the intensity of their fights and act, I would say, as a quasi-professional actor, at least quasi-professional military actor in the region, which is very important to point out.
Quick question. Who is the one who's backing Jinnah and the Tuaregs?
We could say directly that JNIM is self-sufficient on its own. It's relying mostly on drug trafficking, human trafficking, and smuggling around the region. But if I'm not mistaken, it's a splinter group from Al-Qaeda,
Right.
At the origins. So there's always like some fusions or splinters in these groups. So far, JNIM is, I would say, more or less not autosufficient, but it's its own entity and
Right.
doesn't rely on any other groups.
Like state backing from Iran or anybody else.
Absolutely, I don't think they are. I mean, there wouldn't be any interest for Iran, I believe, or other Muslim countries to support, especially because Mali is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, more than 70% a Muslim country.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't make sense.
As you said, Mali, for several years, their security situation has not been the greatest. So I'm just thinking the latest attacks could be just temporary escalation or more of a long-term trend of higher escalation until there's another, let's say, junta that comes and says, oh no, we have to take down the current government, and the cycle repeats itself again.
Yeah, like a Sudan situation where they branch off, like RSF and
Yeah.
SDF, and like then they start they start fighting in between themselves. Is that something that's a possibility, or is the junta pretty like I don't know how to
I would
say
say
that word.
it it's very complicated to see I mean, how it could evolve. It's a long time. It's a long-lasting issue. Basically, when you go back to, I think it was 2013, 2015, the Malian president at the time asked for the international community to assist them because they were facing a high level of exposition to radical Islamist groups. So basically, radical Islamist groups were at the same points, maybe a bit less at the same point as they are now. Then the international community arrived. France was very active, and they pushed back all the radical Islamist groups all the way to the north. But they didn't solve the political issue in the background. And what we're facing since the end of the cooperation with France, and since basically France was ousted out of the country in 2021 or 22, is that the threats of the radical Islamist groups is greater and greater every year. Reports have been showing as well that there was a lot more casualties due to the conflict since around since 2020 to 2021, something like that. Possibly, what I could see is that either the conflict will keep going like that way, and there's serious risk of either spillover to the neighboring countries. Burkina Faso and Niger are directly threatened by that. But it could be possible as well that we could have splinter within the junta if we face, I don't know, like the creation of new patriotic defense movements. I know that, if I'm not mistaken, it's in Burkina Faso where they created like patriotic defense militia or something like that. So it's a possibility as well. And they're talking about like 100,000 men, which is important. So we'll see.
We will see indeed. But that provides a very important context, Antoine, so thank you for that. So, shifting now from security instability in the Sahel, we turn to the Americas, where right now Panama is caught in a very uncomfortable position. It's squeezed between pressure from two major powers, from the US and China. There's an ongoing rivalry over the canal. So, basically, there is an ongoing accusation war between the US and China. But first, as I always say, let me go back to the beginning. So last year, in July 2025, the Panama's Controller General, that is an independent institution that supervises how public money is managed, they filed two lawsuits that were seeking to cancel a 25-year extension that was granted in 2021 to a Chinese company called CK Hutchinson. So, for several years, they operated the ports of Balboa and Cristobal in the canal. So, the lawsuits were filed because of alleged irregularities and like the concessions were considered to be harmful for the national interest. Later this year, on January the 30th, the Supreme Court of Justice of Panama decided to declare the concessions contract as unconstitutional. They were already signed in 2021, right? But the ruling came later. It came in January. It effectively canceled the concessions. Then the company complied with the decision, and in February, Panama transferred the control of the ports over to new operators. But of course, China was not very happy. Let's remember that CK Hutchins is a Chinese company. During a press conference, a spokesperson from the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that China would take all measures necessary to protect the interests of Chinese companies. And yeah, sure they did. In March, the Panamanian government noticed that there was a significant number of detentions or inspections in the Panamanian flagged ships in China. According to the reports, between 70 and 90, which is a very high number. So we can see this as a retaliation move. At first it was not considered as such, but then something else happened. In March, the Chinese shipping company COSCO said that they were going to suspend activities with immediate effect that same day at the Pacific port of Balboa, meaning one of the ports that were in the center of these concessions, right? So they stopped using the Balboa port. The suspension appears to still be enforced. There hasn't been a confirmation or any announcement that it resumed normal operations. So, all in all, what happened? Panama canceled the contracts over the ports for C.K. Hutchinson. Then China, they did say that there would be heavy prices to pay. So then we see that Panamanian ships start being detained. Then another Chinese company, COSCO, stops activities in the port in question, in the Balboa port. So in this context, the U.S. and other 5 Latin American countries, they released a joint statement back on a couple of days ago, on April the 28th. Today is May 3rd, the day we're recording this. So in this statement, they basically said that these actions are a blatant attempt to politicize maritime trade and infringe on the sovereignty of nations of our hemisphere. So there are already 2 things that catch my attention. That the statement uses sovereignty and the hemisphere. I have a lot of thoughts about this. But
I'm ready for it.
Jesus. It speaks volumes of the geopolitical vision that of the narratives that there are. It's like saying no other countries outside the hemisphere are allowed, right? Only US influencing affairs is okay because it's our hemisphere. And now let me talk about the Chinese perspective and their reaction. Because there's another quote from the spokesperson from the Foreign Ministry of China. He said, "We urge US politicians to stop manipulating China-related issues and make more contributions to development and prosperity in the region." So for them, the US is manipulating affairs, but not in a way that brings prosperity and development.
Right.
Right.
That tracks.
Well, what the situation highlights is the politicization of maritime trades. Yeah, more and more commonly nowadays, sovereignty, economic coercion, different narratives, competing narratives, and geopolitical visions. So, I have 2 questions for everyone. Like for you guys and for the people listening as well. First, to what extent could strategic infrastructure still be considered purely commercial in today's geopolitical environment? Because we can see how political it actually can be. And then on the other hand, like if the US argues that outside powers should not interfere in its hemisphere, on what basis does it justify its own deep involvement, let's say, in Asia Pacific, right?
It's really rich coming from the United States at this point, trying to control another major choke point. Like, that's the biggest thing that I think. Hearing this story is like the same thing is happening in the Middle East with the Strait of Hormuz. They're blockading the blockade. So then they're going to try and control Panama as well. you've got way too much control, or you think you have too much control, and you're able to make all these decisions for everybody throughout the world. And especially the my hemisphere part is really gross and really hard to swallow, because we really shouldn't be, American government shouldn't be trying to dictate what's going on throughout the world, and especially at these important choke points. So it's unbelievable that they're trying to dictate what's going on commercially, like you said. So it's mind-boggling, and it just doesn't build good relations when Trump has got his big trip to China coming up this month. So it is going to be something that's on the table, and he's going to have to start thinking about it. How do I deal with this, and how do I come back from all these other comments? So it'll be interesting, to say the least.
I have to say I quite agree with you, and it would be very simple for them to say that, well, if we're acting outside of our territory, it's just because we have to defend our country or defend our interests, and that would be the same narrative as they've used for the past years. As they've always used, actually. So I wouldn't be surprising they would do that, and they would explain to other people very paternalistically, like, no, we have the right, but you don't.
So if you wanted to learn more about this subject matter, one of our analysts, Phoebe Chow, she wrote an article regarding this a couple months ago. So it's definitely worth checking out and getting her perspective on.
Yeah, please do. And with this, we turn to global energy politics. We're going to start talking about the UAE, who has made a significant move by departing the OPEC. So, Meredith, over to you.
Okay, so the OPEC cartel is quite powerful, but it has its limits about how much production can be released onto the market. And with the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed, the Emiratis are taking advantage to build more autonomy about production of their energy and exports. So on the economic side, this move gives Abu Dhabi room to increase output from its 4.8 million barrels per day capacity, and to monetize low-cost reserves, as well as stabilize revenue after war-related damages to tourism, aviation, and investor confidence in the country. This opportunity to leave without impacting the oil market in a large way is significant, because it's already volatile, as we've seen the price of Brent crude go up and down due to the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran. The UAE is one of the few OPEC countries to invest in new capacity in the recent times, and have struggled to bring that capacity to market due to the quotas, who are essentially issued by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In 2016, when the OPEC Plus alliance was formed with Russia, and the UAE began to sense that its allocated quotas failed to reflect their output capacity, ability. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are engaged in a proxy struggle for influence with the UAE across the world, particularly in Sudan, the Horn of Africa, Libya, and Yemen. So this challenge is quite significant geopolitically, because it reduces Saudi Arabia's influence, and it weakens OPEC's spare capacity mechanism, and may encourage other dissatisfied producers to consider the value of cartel discipline. For the UAE, this is a significant advantage because they want to become closer to the United States, especially the Trump administration. He has said in the past that OPEC is ripping off the rest of the world, but there are also some analysts who have raised that the timing is suspicious, while the UAE has asked for the U.S. for a swap line. A swap line is a financial agreement between two central banks. It allows one central bank to borrow money in a foreign currency while providing its own currency as collateral. This arrangement helps ensure that the banks have access to foreign currency they need, especially during times of financial stress. So that's just a little side note on the swap line. There's no evidence of this yet, but the UAE heavily invests in the Trump family businesses. That includes World Liberty, which is the cryptocurrency. They're heavy investors in the Trump family businesses and have weakened OPEC, and has been a goal for several U.S. administrations. So Trump isn't the first one to say that he doesn't like OPEC, but he is one that is more vocal about it than previous administrations, because the U.S. energy industry has sometimes benefited from the strict rules from OPEC for their own U.S. production, but they also get the downsides as well. So the Emiratis have really seen the writing on the wall and are trying to get ahead of for their economy by diversifying away from oil and gas economy. So they want to be able to use as much as possible and sell as much as possible right now before we move into a completely renewable energy system. Not that that's anytime soon, but make money while you can. So the UAE is positioning itself as the nexus of global financial, logistics, and aviations. They're aligning themselves with other governments like Israel through the Abraham Accords and supporting an armed insurgency in Yemen, and also which has been angering the Saudi leaders who back the recognized government. The Emiratis have also been involved in Sudan's brutal civil war, where Saudi Arabia and Egypt support the government, and the Emiratis back the rival paramilitary group, RSF. So they do deny that they're sending weapons to the Sudanese group, but there is extensive evidence to the contrary. So at the end of the day, they want to be able to make as much money as possible, gain influence in the Middle East, but also be as friendly as possible to the United States.
The way I see it, with the situation also of the Strait of Hormuz, I think it hit everyone like a bucket of iced water, and they started to reconsider their own economic policies, and that might be one of the initiators of taking on this step of living, because that way it also gives them some freedom to decide how to address individual struggles, especially that they're going through right now. But there are way more layers to it, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's so significant how many different layers there are to it. There's just the rivalry with Saudi Arabia, MBZ and MBS. Like, there's personality clashes, there's influence clashes, there's economic reasons to really build up their capacity to sell and not be bogged down with how much they are allowed to. So it's difficult for anybody else in OPEC to see why they're doing it, but it's perfect timing is what it is that they've been wanting to do this for a while. This is their out because they don't feel like they're going to affect the price of the oil. It did do like a little bit of a blip when I was looking at the charts, but it wasn't significant enough to bottom out or skyrocket. So it is something that is significant.
Well, thank you so much, guys. And with that, we conclude this week's discussion. As always, on behalf of Antoine, Meredith, and myself, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And stay with us to keep unpacking why politics matter.
For more articles on why geopolitics matters, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at whygeopoliticsmatter.com.